everyone. I'm Elena Armijo, and I'm the founder of the C-Suite Collective. This is a company I created for executive leadership coaching and wellness that supports C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and founders. Now, more than ever, businesses are running faster and with fewer resources. Burnout, overwhelm, disconnection, and disillusionment are the new norm for teams struggling with an old paradigm. At the C-Suite Collective, I believe deeply that providing massive support for your teams through executive coaching and holistic practices will create an inclusive culture, higher levels of performance, sustainable change, and the organizational impact you desire. You can find us at the c-suitecollective.com. What does wholeheartedness mean? We'll look at that in our coaching tip for the week. And today in our interview segment, we have Claudine Chiarmonte, who is a gifted coach, psychotherapist, senior executive trainer, and podcaster with over 30 years of experience transforming lives. She has a strong background in government, nonprofits, healthcare, training, and development. I hope you enjoy the episode today, and remember, something powerful resides within you. I'm here to support you in seeing it and creating it. What does wholeheartedness mean? So this is a concept that the C-Suite Collective and myself as a private coach has been really diving into the last 6 or 7 years. And when I think of leadership in the world, I've seen leadership growing up. I'm 42 years old, so I haven't had a ton of experience yet. But in the past 25 years, the leadership I've seen has been changing and growing into something different. Before, there was a lot of separation of self or your private life or your belief system. And today, when I think about a wholeheartedness to your leadership, I really think about you bringing all of yourself to the table authentically. This doesn't mean oversharing or disclosing things that make people uncomfortable or are not intentional in spaces, but it really invites you into the space of cultivating authenticity at a new level so that you're not hiding your fears, or you're not hiding that you don't know everything and that you're making stuff up along the way as a leader, just like everyone else is in the world. There's a lot more self-compassion involved in being wholehearted. Self-compassion where you sit and you can actually be okay with your humanity and your mistakes instead of perfectionism or beating yourself up or shaming yourself. There's gratitude and joy in wholeheartedness. And instead of control or a need for certainty or shutting down some of those ways that you can actually express yourself joyfully, you embrace celebration and gratitude and joy. And you're also cultivating creativity and stillness and meaningfulness in work, which all leads you to a new place of creation and ideas and leadership. And I think another piece of wholehearted living that I've really worked to cultivate is rest and play. I'm still working on this one, especially the play one. This seems to be like my last resistance from my own survival mechanism is allowing myself to play within my life, within my business, even something as simple as, allowing myself to laugh at a silly comedy special midday. So I'm really looking at what would more play provide me in my leadership and rest. And, we've talked a lot in this podcast about rest and what that would provide you, but just another reminder that part of being wholehearted is that you are human and you need rest. There are periods of time where you're going to have to source yourself in a different way than you used to. Or for whatever you're up to creating in your life, it might look different at this point to just rest. Claudine, I'm so excited to have you today on the podcast. I remember the first time I met you, and I always like to talk about the first time I meet people or my first experience of that person. And it was on a phone call with Melanie, our director of coaching at the C-Suite Collective. And we had been introduced to you through Liz. And I just remember thinking, this woman is so open-hearted. And I remember, because, we're over here making stuff up, on how companies and new leadership should go. And you just sat there and you were a ray of sunshine, but you were this grounding, magnificent force that you could tell was tapped into the earth in a big way and the universe, but also incredibly brilliant and wise. So I have been just so honored and privileged to get to know you the past 6 months. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. And thank you for holding this space for your vision as a leader and, as a creator. with TCC and how you hold all of us and the collective together. It was a pleasure that day, and I was even more thrilled when I got to meet you in person.
I know, that was the best, meeting each other in person,
Yes,
which is a
yes.
weird thing to say these days, but it's more often than not that we hear that with a lot of people. Yeah.
Yes, we know a lot electronically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. My goodness. Well, I just want to talk a little bit briefly about your history. So is there anything you want to share about your background or, the work you do in the world?
Sure. The lens of who I am is so generated through my family. I'm the youngest, though my brother and I was also raised in a step family, so I was the youngest there also. But our family is a really tight Syrian background. I'm Syrian and I'm Sicilian. And we were raised much more with my mother and her two sisters. They're very strong women. I mean, these are warriors, and they created warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I say that because I was drawn to my work. I watched my family of chaos and substantial abuse, and I was called into becoming a social worker really early in my life, and giving voice to people who did not have the ability to give voice, particularly in systems that, yes, were made for them, but really lock them out or put them in a box. Like if you only have these square footage, like my background is child welfare. And we put a lot of boxes around families and children in child welfare. Like, right, square footage, you have to have this much of a job, that, and you have to do treatment, but it comes out to more hours and resources than the families really have. So I found myself in a career that I was in dismay and traumatized by again. I can remember working in therapy going, this is the best we've got. And so how do I make an impact and influence in this system that is not always rigged to those who have been harmed in our society? Yeah. I don't think any parent wakes up saying, I'm going to harm, but circumstances do occur. And I had been privileged. I have never chosen a job. I have always been tapped. And I really had the ability to both create a clinical practice with some specialties in trauma and attachment theory, and ultimately becoming an administrator and leaving a legacy that is always grounded somewhat in, I can feel my emotionality, in somewhat of grief, pain, and harm, and in celebration, right? Adoption is another area of my life. And there's a lot of celebration and a lot goes into a child accepting someone else can love them. So I've been the clinician and I've also been the administrator at those, functions at courthouse when they say I do. And kids are asked to say yes, by the way. And I loved my career, and I'm grateful for all those. I had amazing mentors. But I will tell you, it's a champion from my younger self. Always was there pushing, because I didn't experience feeling seen as a child in a large family. And it was, well, how can I have other kids be seen? Because they can't go through this. They weren't seen. Hence, they're in a system that is bigger than them. So really being a child advocate all my life, in my career, to match that. And it did come to a point where I've also paid a price. I absorbed a lot in that role. And as an administrator, I was working 2.5 hours away from my home. And it was taxing, to say the least, my choice. But I was hit by a drug driver on the way to my work one day. I was meeting with the feds that day. And it changed my life. Like our state of New Jersey, where I'm from, where we were under monitorship for a lawsuit. And, the feds check in. So I was having a meeting, I was hosting that day, and I didn't make it. And it gave me 6 to 9 months to reevaluate my life. Like, yes, have I lived into my potential? What is this? What am I doing? I'm not in joy in my job, but in purpose. But there was some conflict. And the decision really, after coming back for 1 week, is I resigned. I had done 25 years. And it was like time. And I stepped into transformational training. People may know it by EST or MindSpring, Landmark. I stepped into a training called Gratitude. And it had me see life differently
Mm-hmm.
and where my career and how can I be of influence and impact. In that trajectory, I would say, closed doors of old wounds. It healed,
Mm-hmm.
and at least I would say my parents, both with me still, and I'm very blessed. There's no regrets there. Like there's just
Mm-hmm.
love at this point. They did the best they could, and they see me now for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But it changed how I wanted to be of impact and service. It was like, well, and I think coaching was that next natural step. It was the first time I had a coach. I hired a coach. I'm still friends with her. And it was like, wow, we're whole and complete. Right? Psychotherapy doesn't, it may come from that, but we're such an affixate healing. And I think we've changed our languaging over the years from when I was trained 30 years ago to now.
Sure.
We were very presenting problem in the past. And
Mm.
now we don't speak that way. We really talk about healing and the inner child and living in fulfillment.
Yeah.
Coaching has become that avenue for me. And I really appreciate, so I really blended my psychotherapy, which I'm still an active psychotherapist with a full practice, and an active coach with a full practice. I have this blending that I lean in both areas, right? Depending on where the person goes and what's what they seek. It's not my agenda, especially when I'm a coach. So I've continued to be grateful for Spirit allowing me still to attract the people that I am to work with and impact so that they can live, right? So they can have safety, so they can be daring and vulnerable and create intimacy in an impact in all areas of their life that they seek. So that's why I'm professionally, but I'm very driven by my heart and by Spirit. It's just who I am.
What a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing all of that openly and vulnerably. And there's a couple of pieces of it that I want to just highlight that really stood out, which is,
Sure.
I find that there's so many people in the world that will either be in the either or camp, if we're talking from a binary language standpoint of I can be happy at my job, but not have purpose or fulfillment, even though I might be happy, or I can have a lot of purpose in my job, but I'm, my well-being is out. I'm not joyful. It's sucking my soul. And I have a lot of respect for both sides of the coin because I think that in the world, there's a time and a place for that part of our journey, or, those industries really need people. And what I love about you is you found a way to combine both and be in the middle of that. And do you have anything that you want to share around that journey in particular? Because I know a lot of people struggle with, should I have a job that I love or should I have a purposeful job?
Yeah. There's that quote, right? Like, find what you love to do and you won't work another day in your life. And I use that quote often in judgment of myself. I'm not experiencing that. So I myself gotten it right. I think it's a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
Right. But there's no doubt. I think everybody is born with a purpose or how to impact the world. At least, for me, I'm really clear about that. So I wouldn't say it was a direct line, and it's still not. It's still finding those sweet spots, but being open to the beginnerness and the messiness to find and feel your way through. Like, I know I'm guided by my GPS, my intuition and spirit. So, right, where is this landing here? Right. And tuning in and checking in. Is this really, am I having the experience I want? And am I only relying on this experience? Because I think, Elena, a lot of people also think the job will be it. The partner will be it.
Yeah.
Well, not really. It's part of it, but like, what's my relationship here with me? It starts with me, and I know it's never great advertising. I think someone who did my website was like, I don't know that it's going to work. Like my feeling is when you have a good relationship here, I can have it there. And that's in any area of my life. But this is the most significant relationship from a place of knowing so that I can then be in relationship and be open to the growth that happens. And it's been a journey of finding that and tuning that. But I'll tell you, it has come from tuning in here. Right? I'm a woman of significant weight loss. So there's been years of living here and not here.
Yeah.
I've had to give this a lot of somatic work. So the
Mm-hmm.
connecting, and it's in the connecting to me that I have crafted something. And I do think you're right. People struggle with, but I want it all. Well, you can have it, but you've got to be willing to maybe not get it right. And
Yeah.
that's
And
where
have
I
it be
find a
the journey.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
people want to get it right. Like they don't want the mess. It's like, it's going to come, and can you love yourself through that?
Yeah.
It's not perfectionism, it's the progress and taking the risk. There is daring risks here when we
Mm.
leave a structure that we know to say, what is this? Like for me, stepping into entrepreneurialness, I was a 9 to 5er
Mm-hmm.
for 27 years. Like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
It is what I want to create and what I want to co-create, right? I'm not saying I do this alone. I do this with amazing organizations like TCC, and with
Yeah.
amazing clients. So
Yeah. Yeah.
can we be open to team? We
Mm.
don't need to do it
Mm-hmm.
alone. So I think that's how I'm still feeling in and creating and crafting and weaving, even in my 56th year of life.
That's amazing. Well, and you used a word relationship, and I love that you pointed to yourself first because I'm a firm believer that everything stems from that as well. But this is a big piece of your work is being in relationship with people, but also coaching
Yes.
around relationship in the world.
Yes.
So, what does relationship mean to you? And how do you see that that's so important in executives in the world?
That's a great question. What is relationship? I somehow want to go to metaphor. I feel myself, it's like that,
Yeah.
the opportunity to dance with another where we get to see them and to be seen.
Yeah.
It's intimate and spacious at the same time. But I
Yeah.
also believe relationships are our spiritual pathway,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's some belief in the Tantra community, right? Like relationships are our avenue to God, however we see it.
Yeah. Whatever your
So,
definition is.
yeah. And what is so important, even in our corporate world, it's all based on relationships. People may have
Mm-hmm.
titles like CEO, but you're not a CEO without relationships to your board, to your direct reports, to your clients. Even if you don't have, touch with your clients,
Mm-hmm.
it is, I don't know, I'm not so crazy about the triangle. I like circles a little bit better. They're softer to me, but there's a continuation. As a leader, and you're touching everybody, even if, you have direct or indirect experience or dancing with them. So I
Yeah.
notice in coaching executives, some come very firm. They have a plan
Mm-hmm.
about where they want to get their business to, goal, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they want to change their career. They're like, it's not where I want to be, or I had success here and I want to create another form of expression of myself. Right? So we
Mm-hmm.
really do look at, well, what is the relationship? How are we tending to self? Because if
Mm-hmm.
we're going to move,
Mm-hmm.
are we attending to the temple? I'll say, like, what's the mind, body, spirit? I'll use the word self-care, which has become a hot word, but really, are we
Yeah.
fertilizing ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And how are we engaging with others? What are the
Mm-hmm.
principles? So I really start with, what are our principles? Or people also call them values. I think of
Mm-hmm.
principles as pillars. If I was thinking of
Mm-hmm.
a house, I would call it the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Values to me change, right? Like, so that would be the siding. I have aluminum siding and I have, aluminum windows. I may change my siding. My values change as I age or I learn and grow, but my principles don't. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
grounded. For me. Like, I know my principles are compassion, integrity, service, and spirit. That hasn't changed since I made that declaration, I don't know, 20 something years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But what I value has changed as I age, right? I found a
Yeah.
different
Beautiful
focus,
distinction. Yeah.
right? So I really work with our leaders about what are they, what are our principles and how are
Mm-hmm.
we in relation to them? But how do we embody them? So if I'm in
Mm-hmm.
relationship with you, what is integrity as I embody it with you? It's like showing up on time. Claudine,
Mm-hmm.
complete this. Like, it's my
Mm-hmm.
word, but it's not just the doing this. it is really the beingness because I say it and I show up in that I believe I am. So working with our leaders about that, because some of them don't have that self-awareness. Like, yeah, I'm full of, integrity, but yet behind the scenes, they're cutting someone's this or budget and they haven't told them yet. And so we really work on some of the alignment. Like, what is it you want to create? And if you're not mirroring what you want to create in your organization, there's going to be a disconnection, right? And then we always want to go find the blame game person. Well, it's that.
Yeah.
It's them there in finance. It's like, no, if you're the leader, where are you in alignment where you're not in alignment? I wouldn't say perfection. I said alignment.
Yeah.
Right? So I really start in that place. And there's some vulnerability there to do a self-audit. How am I showing up? What in our domains? And then what domains to me are, I'm doing well there. I call them the maintenance domains, right? Where are the domains that I say I want to improve? And then where are my domains that are critical that actually need immediate attention? So we work on the wellness and safety inside so that we can then start to expand and, create the plan. But that's not me. I don't create it. I'm just a guide on the side.
Yeah, exactly. They create it. But it's so beautiful. And you use this word vulnerability, which is a big word right now, right? Hot in the world. Everybody's talking about it. You and I were talking about Brene Brown talking about it offline. So what do you have for those leaders that are willing to be vulnerable? They say, okay, I'm in for this game. Because I think a lot of the conversations we're in these days, leaders are at least open to the concept now and to what that actually might look like for them on their terms. But what do you say to those leaders that are open and yet don't have anywhere to start or have no idea what they should expect with vulnerability, or, they're at the beginning of this journey? Like, what would you say to them?
I appreciate that because I'm thinking of some of the clients I'm working with. Great.
Yeah.
I think we got to go where they are, because there's a relationship they even have to that word or idea or what it's generating in them. So sometimes I will say, what is it? Because some people it really clogs them up, that word. So we're like, okay, let's uncollapse it a bit so it can become embraceable to them. Otherwise, we're going to be in resistance. It's not my job to push a concept that may be wonderful, but that's not where they are. And then, I would tell you, I do some modeling of it. So I think people think vulnerability. Yes, I have access to my tears and emotionality. Anybody seen the movie Elemental by Disney? I'm water and I'm also fire. But I can go to water very easily. I can access my emotionality. And I think that's what people think, like, I can't do that. Like, they look at the tears and like, I can't as a leader. Well, it's not, tears are not the only form of vulnerability. It could be even the small shares with them, like, hey, I'm not really sure of where we're going with this year's plan, or, I'm unsure of that. The act of even sharing where they are, or I'm thinking about, or I'm inviting you to collaborate. And that's a big act for some of our leaders who think being a leader means I have all the vision and so creating a collaborative, like, can they be open to not having to be the director of it all? And I say that, like, you and I can go like that. Yeah, of course, but not to some leaders. The way they got there was driving the bus, being that, like, and like, okay, if I want to do it differently, like, who can I now invite on my bus? I don't have to drive it all the time. Or, right. And so we take those baby steps of what would that look like. And interestingly enough, most people that I work with, leaders, go like, oh, thank God, I don't have to do it all myself.
Yeah, right. It's so relieving.
They're relieving. And I recognize they're also scared that they'll be seen differently or weak. I hear that word. Or somehow they're not as strong as they used to. So we really have to work through what they've put on themselves, or this idea of leadership, right? Like, what's the new paradigm that you want to have as leader? Like, I get to say, like, you're the author, not some book. You don't have to do it according to anyone. So that's how I start them. And I will tell you, I also resource people up. So I will have them read some other forms. Like I'm, Simon Sinek, person. I'm a Brene Brown. So I will have them, listen to podcasts, read books as a way of also giving them some new perspective, like opening it up.
Yep.
So they can start to embrace and create their own ideas. Of course, it would also gets generated in our coaching sessions. So that's how I started. And, like some of them, I love when they come back to me. I changed the way I do my agendas now. The simple act of opening an agenda and sending around and saying, open topics you add, the reaction leaders get is they don't even foresee it, because all of a sudden their team is starting to own it. It's not, we're going to the meeting, it's his meeting, her meeting. It's like, it becomes our meeting. And they just are like, I think leaders are actually surprised. And that's a very small act. I'm not saying that's going to make break.
Yeah.
But for some, the act of opening it and the invitation that creates on their team starts to change a culture and experience.
Exactly. That's really beautiful. And I think one thing to highlight with my clients in particular is when you go through this process, some of them get frustrated because it's not fast and furious and enough, right? And so I really hear in your share too that you work on gradients with people of hey, try this for a while, and you cannot reinvent Rome overnight here. Right? Like it's a shift, it's a transition.
It really is. And, that's probably when I also try to use some of the brain knowledge that we have, right? One of the things, and I know David in our collective, TCC collective, both of us are certified as positive intelligence coaches. And it really is about looking at neuroplasticity. Right? 56 years I've been at things. So like I have habits, they're ingrained and they're wired. Does that mean I can't create new? Of course I can. But really we're looking at a commitment at least 120 days, and people are like, well, I read the book. It should only be 30. I'm like, yeah, 30 is for a habit. You want to go unconscious with a habit. You're talking about 120 days. Like you're talking about changing culture. You're changing that many people's brain waves, including your own. That's going to take a little attention to change the wiring and the firing of our brain, right? So really trying to take it off the person and move it into some biology where they can take, like, I'm not all in control. I'm like, no, there's actually some things that we can do, but it is an internal process. I think helps some of particularly our analyzers and our thinkers.
Yeah.
Really have some other ways of viewing this. Change is over time. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So beautifully said. And I'm curious, so you've been at this game for a while. So I imagine you've seen some trends and some things change over the industry. And overall, what are you excited about that you've seen, over the course of the coaching industry and the therapy industry over the last 30 years or so? What excites you now? Yeah.
I still have a buddy, a coaching buddy. We meet every week for an hour. And we actually were talking about the coaching world. When we really go back to the foundation, this is not a very old industry, right?
Yeah,
the coaching
not at
industry.
all. Nope.
It started at the University of Coaching. I can't remember Tom's last name. He's no longer with us. But when it really came about, it really was based on this competency of listening, presence, guiding. And I think coaching schools in their marketing have added so many of their models. So there's times where I kind of feel like we've gotten a little diluted, and I get marketing and product competition. So I get excited when I find people speaking or programs really focusing on the art of coaching, not only extras. Because there's a lot of extras that we've put in there, right? Like we're flooded, and a lot of people who are not coaches but attended something and now they're kind of a coach. So I like some of the purity of coaching, and it is really presence. It really is holding space for somebody in such a way that it generates questions. People are like, well, what's the questions you use? I may have a way I start a session, but I don't sit there with a list, right? And I think trust the relationships will generate the amazing ahas and breakthroughs. I think there's some people still holding on like this, and yet people who experience coaching go, oh yeah, right. It's been really interesting to see how we're moving to all these platforms, which have made it packageable and more manageable of a benefit for companies. Yeah. But they've also commoditized coaching into X amount of sessions, X amount of length.
Yeah.
And, I have some people approach me like, hey, my company would pay for 3 sessions. Will you accept their rate? And it's not about the money. It's about what are we doing in 3 sessions? And are we focused like that, and it doesn't mean I never do it. So I think there's this contraction sometimes on coaching to fit into a benefit pool that concerns me. Yep. And at the same time, I'm excited that we're trying to figure out ways to make it more reachable and accessible. It's a both and right now, though, for Elena, for me. Right? I've seen a lot of companies, they've asked me to partner with them, or I've done some, I do breath work and visualizations, and I'll record it. And I'm like, what are we really doing? What's this product? And it's replacing the human coach with AI. So you would tell it and it would keep generating answers, questions. And I've used the products. I'm like, no.
It doesn't hit the same at all.
It doesn't get the tone and rate. It doesn't really understand the distinctions of words used. So it could take you down a path this way. And I'm like, no, I meant it this way. And did I set it up to do that? So I did.
Yeah.
So I think we can't rely and go, we're going to be replaced by computers, artificial intelligence at one day. I hope not. And I don't see that experience. I know we're developing, machines that have feelings now and can sense. I just haven't had the experience yet that I feel it gets to that granular level of connection and intimacy.
Yeah. And do the nuance. Yeah.
Yeah. What freaking excites me a lot is that we are talking about the word vulnerability, or I'm going to use the word healing. If we step back, what I think we are seeing in industries of healing are wholeness. We're talking from holistically the being and our own wholeness as an individual. And these are new words for us. Maybe not in the last few years, but we're still living into what that really means. For people, when I say you're whole and complete, there's still a rejection that some of my clients have. Like, oh no, let me tell you about my shame. And I've done this. And it's like, oh, wow. And to be able to heal so that they can claim and own their worth and self-love. That's what this is all about, at least to me. And however that is, if it's in your industry, in your career, if it's in your intimate relationship, if it's with your own health, with your children, however that's going to look. I love that we're going holistically. Like, what do I eat? What do I watch? What do I listen to? It's all impacting me all the time. I don't think we thought that. And it could be where I'm sitting, but I'm witnessing a revival of something that I have a lot of passion, which is I'll call it inner aspects, shadow, inner children, however we want to call it, but that we are far more dimensioned than putting here in this body, right?
Yep.
In my psyche, in my history, in my body, my cells, that there's memories in so much of me, not just in this, what my recall is, or that I work with a relationship coach where we are looking at, like, how is my queen being honored? How's my inner lover? How's my inner prostitute? Right? Yeah. I have to acknowledge I have this inner destructive monsterness, and I have an enormous amount of nurturance and love. Right? All of these, I joke with some of my clients, these are my inner aspects.
Yeah.
She has us go over
all the different colors and cards.
Yeah. Because when I'm with my partner, or when I'm with myself, there's other little parts of me that are, activated. Sometimes it's my wondrous child who's like, wow. In that same moment, it could also be my inner lover who's like, wow, and I want to share it with you. Or right?
Mm-hmm.
Recognizing that. So I hear these conversations, and it's maybe because it's where I sit and those I connect
Mm.
with. But even working with leaders, that you get to own there's elements and feelings to you that are
Yeah.
driving the bus sometimes. I call getting hijacked.
No. Yeah.
Without judgment, but how do we invite them in? Because we can't keep
Right.
them out,
Right.
right?
Or cut them
So how do
out
we
or try
invite
to
them
like,
in?
yeah,
Yeah,
pretend they don't
how do we
exist
integrate them?
or yeah, invite them to the
Yeah.
table. That's really beautiful. And I love that word. I do think it is wholeheartedness. I'm hearing that more and more in spaces that are not even transformational spaces, which is exciting. And the idea that you can tend to yourself holistically is really, at least in the Western world, and maybe the Western world is a bit behind because I think some of the other countries in the world have always had this mindset on some level, but it seems like in the US specifically, really getting back to some of those core concepts that might have been lost.
Exactly. And I also think what's exciting in the whole holisticness is people are going to different types of medicines, right? So
Mm.
we're seeing the medicine of breath work and
Yep.
Reiki, right? But we're also seeing, how having a sweat lodge is medicine, right?
Hmm.
Sitting with different plants medicines, if
Hmm.
it's ayahuasca or bufo
Yep.
or even the use of marijuana. I think people are right now open to more ways of healing and more
Hmm.
avenues. And I'm an integrative coach. There's times where, I will sit and assist people with a journey in terms of preparing them, being with them, or, doing integration post, because there is more ways. Talk
Hmm.
therapy and coaching, right? They're my two
Hmm.
primary. But the idea that there's hundreds of paths and
Hmm.
not being
Hmm.
so righteous or committed to one, but are we
Hmm.
open? And I sense this generation is more and more liberal to
Yeah.
other pathways, and to see like ketamine being used in that way, psilocybin being used. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, none of these are the answers. They are part
No.
of it. Yeah. And to be
Hmm.
open to healing in whatever way, I'm really thrilled to see that there's an opening to that and an embracing of it.
That's amazing. Yeah. And thank you for saying that because I feel like some of the clients that might still be resistant to different modes of healing or have a fear around it, some of the judgments I hear are, well, some people think these are the answers. So there's definitely that side of, again, these are all tools and they're all methodologies to help you find your way back to you and that relationship piece that we were talking about earlier around
Yep.
your soul, your heart, your mind, your body. And they're all just avenues available to you.
Mm-hmm. No, most definitely.
Very
And that
cool.
is really how I work. And it shows up differently in my language if I'm a coach versus in my therapist hat. And I mean, I think
Yeah.
people probably know the distinctions. Right? We're hired as experts as therapists. They do want to
Hmm.
see our certifications and do you know this? And I'm someone who always encourages clients, ask me questions. Because I was
Yes,
available or recommended does not make me the therapist for you. And
exactly.
it's a different come from coaching, where I may hold information and knowledge, but that's not what the lead is. That's not what coaching is about. Like,
Hmm.
right? The expert
Hmm.
is the client. So there is a really different come from and dynamic. But to me, they're both paths to our wholeness and our fulfillment
Hmm.
in relationship of intimacies of self and others, vision and purpose, right? Because when we're there, we have that clarity. So I
Yeah.
think it's what pathways people are choosing, and there's so many now. And
Yeah.
I'm thrilled that this younger generation is open to experimenting and hopping and trying.
Yeah.
I joke. I have this 20 something year oldishness attraction I have in my clientele right now. And I'm not sure what that's about. I would never tell you that's my specialty. But what I'm
Right.
sensing in this generation is they don't have certain clarity, right?
Hmm.
They see they have all these opportunities, and sometimes it's almost overwhelming. Where
Yeah.
do I fit in? How do I navigate this enormous gift of this life, right? There's less
Hmm.
restriction, and helping them move through it or recognize that there is a calling. You just got to tap into it. They already got the map,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes I just need to learn how to hone in and read it. And
Yeah.
so it's been a great journey to see a lot more younger people moving into these places of healing at an earlier age. And I'm not even sure if it's a healing, but there's this other part of growing upness that they're seeking. You know, some sage and some wisdom from an elder, and I'm happy to be that.
That's amazing. Ah, I just got chills for the future through that lens, and for people being able to truly find purpose from a different way instead of maybe an old way of have to or should or any of the ways that we used to fit into those boxes. So, yeah. Well, Claudine, you are magnificent. I really do think you're a unicorn, and I feel so blessed around everybody that we're surrounded with that we've chosen to invite to the table. And I'm so grateful to you and the work you're doing in the world. So thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom today.
It was my pleasure. Any opportunity to connect to you is a gift. So thank you for filling my heart up today. It was a pleasure.
If this conversation sparks something for you, let it move through your week. Take it with you. Take on one small action to move the ball forward. And if you want to join our community of leaders who are daring to lead with courage and heart, you can find that at www.elenaarmijo.com or www.thec-suitecollective.com. I reserve a small number of complimentary 20-minute sessions for leaders who want clarity on what they need and insight into what is getting in the way. The practical next steps that create real movement and results in your leadership journey. So you can schedule a call through the link below. It's in the description. Like, subscribe. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for doing the work of being human together.